time to go and research on. As you're about to begin, let me maybe lay the ground rules on what is expected of our lesson today. In our lesson today, number one, if you have a concern, I just need to see you raising your question in form of a chat, and I'll get back to you. That is one of the rules that you're supposed to engage in. Number two, I'll urge all of us to pay utmost attention so that we gain from the discussion, as well as I'll be sharing my screen on the essay in writing. Another thing is, for today's lesson, you're going to engage fully in 2 essays, and to encourage someone that as you're discussing the essay, you'll see some of the points will be repeated. Essay writing in paper 3 is about how can you use the knowledge of the story in answering a question. You make the knowledge of the book to fit into the argument of your particular question for the day. I'll begin by sharing the question. The first question that we are to dwell on, and the question will be shared in a few. I've given you access to my screen. I hope all of us are in a position to see. Before you can view the introduction and all that, I wanted us to first of all internalize yesterday's question. On the screen, you can see it has been written, Lara John, the Samaritan. Then there is question 1. Question 1 says, citizens have a role of voting in leaders of honor. When they elect selfish leaders, they end up suffering. Write an essay to justify this claim, basing your illustrations on John Lara's The Samaritan. A minute, I'm leaving my screen open over there. I want you to internalize the question. Let me not assume that everyone who was there yesterday, is still here today. So some people might be joining us for the first time. Let's internalize the question. As we are internalizing the question, let's bring our focus to the keywords. The keywords we had established yesterday, but we don't mind repeating. Citizens have a role of voting in leaders of honor. We are looking at voted in leaders. And the reason I've underlined leaders of honor, if you understand the Samaritan, the leaders that were voted in, none of them is a leader of honor. But citizens have a role of voting in leaders of honor. When they elect selfish leaders, they end up suffering. The key word should have been voted in leaders. Voted in leaders. Another key word should have been selfishness of the leaders. When they elect selfish leaders, meaning in your argument, you must bring out the selfishness of the elected leaders and how they make the citizens to suffer. That is enough of internalizing the question. Allow me to stop sharing in a bit so that we can also concentrate on what I am trying to explain. We are looking at voted in leaders. We are looking at the selfishness of these leaders. At the same time, we are looking at how do they make their citizens to suffer. And before I can even share back my screen, because we'll be looking at the types of introductions, the second essay, I'll move a bit faster. Let's learn all the basics using the first essay. Number 1, we have the different types of introductions. There are 5 in number, but I was prescribing to my students that we'd rather confine ourselves to the usage of 3. The three being general introduction. You speak about something in the society that has ties to our discussion for today. Another type of introduction was the contextualized one. You touch on the book. Which characters or which events in the book are relatable to our question of the day? And number 3, the one I recommended also, was a paraphrased introduction. And I think every time I'm presenting an essay on the screen, you'll be at a position to see how I've used the 3 types of introductions. And another question is, which one should we use? Should we use all the three types of introductions? My answer will be learn all of them, and the one that you find easiest to maneuver is the one you put into practice. So we are looking at the introduction. That one I'll share in a bit. And the introduction still should be the student's own understanding of the essay question in your own words. Can you tell us in the introduction bit? Are you able to tell us what is this essay about? That is the essence of the introduction. And another thing, before I can even share my introduction, when you get into the body, you are supposed to look at how do we develop a full point, a point that will have undergone the three stages being the topic sentence, the illustrations or background information that ends up with a clincher. That is also something you're going to look at when you're getting into the body of our today's essay. And finally, via a way of example, we look at the types of conclusion. I highly recommended two types of conclusions whereby you can make use of either a summary of the points discussed in your essay. And when you're doing the summary, please do not introduce any new point that you had not discussed in the body. Another type of conclusion, you can give a piece of advice, advice that should be morally upright. You tell them what to do in that touches on virtues. And you have still expounded on the conclusion. Someone asked, can you also make use of relevant proverbs? And after confirmation, proverbs are also valid as long as it is a proverb that is applicable. You know, some people like the proverb, all that glitters is not gold. Even where it is not applicable, they are using it. But if it is applicable, we give it a pass. You can make use of it. Without further ado, allow me now to share my screen. When I'm sharing my screen, I want your attention to be on the introduction. I want your attention to be on the introduction. On the introduction, if you're looking at the same screen, let me try and maximize. But if you're using a laptop or even a phone, it is clearly legible. It is even typed, so it is clearly legible. I have displayed all the three types of introductions, and I would urge my class, before I can permit you to look at the others, not that if you look at it, anything will happen, but my focus is on if you could pay attention bit by bit so that our lesson can move, we can be moving together. Citizens have a role, and then what about the general introduction? On the general introduction, you can say something about our society. Some leaders only care about their selfish interests. When such self-seeking leaders are elected, they abuse their power and break the law with impunity. They engage in vices such as corruption, drug trafficking, murder, gang warfare, misappropriation of public funds, etc. The citizens who vote them in bear the brunt of such cruelty, lack of integrity, and inefficiency. If you look at my general introduction, the first bit of it, have we been able to capture leaders who have been elected? Yes. And then these leaders are selfish. Because they're selfish, what are they doing? They are self-seeking. They break the law. They engage in the evils that have been mentioned over there, corruption, murder, and all that. So the selfishness, if you can pick on such things, corruption, drug trafficking, murder, that brings out a selfish leader, a leader who does not serve the purpose for which they have been elected. And then at the end of my general introduction, we are saying the citizens who vote them in bear the brunt of such cruelty. Bearing the brunt has already summarized that such citizens suffer. In what ways? The lack of integrity and the inefficiency that comes from these leaders. If you don't feel like using the general introduction, you can go ahead and use the contextualized introduction. The contextualized will always specifically directly tie to the book. And then the contextualized, if we could brainstorm on it, you're saying elected leaders in the Samaritan, including Mosi, Ramdaye, Ted, and Seymour. Over there, it is almost contextualized, and I have outlined. I'm going to speak about Mosi, Ramdaye, Ted, and Seymour. And in my yesterday's explanation, I had said the people who had been elected in office, the ones that people maybe elected them through voting, they narrow it down to four people: Mosi, Ramdaye, Ted, and Seymour. They have caused untold suffering to the citizens as a result of their selfish acts. In other words, I'm saying to the examiner who will be marking my work, in this my introduction, I recognize elected leaders as the four. In this, my introduction, I recognize that the citizens will suffer because of the acts of people like Ted, Simo, and the others. That makes it a very nice contextualized introduction, and it will guarantee you the 2 marks in full. We move ahead to the paraphrased introduction. With the paraphrased introduction, you simply change some of the words. Citizens who have a duty, you see, the word role has simply been interchanged for duty. Citizens who have a duty to elect leaders of integrity, leaders of honor, leaders of integrity, end up suffering when they elect the contrary, when they elect the opposite of integrity, the selfish people. When they elect the selfish people, they suffer as these leaders fail to deliver on promises, leading to the suffering of the citizens. So far, that has been the introduction. And uh, when I speak so much, as you are sharing the screen, I'm afraid that people will be more focused on the reading as opposed to the explanation. So, what is my take on this? My take will be now when I'm going into the explanation, I'll pick a point. And because I don't want you to be reading, anyone can read. I can just give you the document, you go and read at your own time. To avoid that, I'll pick on a point, explain in my own words, and then as a way of reinforcing what I've said, I'll be sharing that point on screen. Another thing, even before I can move to the points, let me remind my students, introduction is a paragraph on its own. If you dare mix them up, what will happen? I'll judge it as the introduction, or I will choose to judge it as point number one. So it is up to the student to do what? To demarcate between the points. My introduction ends at this point, and my point number one begins at this point. What of importance to remember is let each point be in a paragraph of its own. And I've not seen any questions so far in the chat section. And that translates to me that the points on introduction, the various types of introductions have been successfully understood. I want to move on to my points, and we mix our grammar, what we've learned in our grammar, in our English books, and we put it into use in our literature. What do I mean? In our English, we have learned there are some words we call transitional words. The transitional words, they're able to move an argument from one point to another. For example, that was the introduction. I don't need to tell the examiner introduction. So how do I begin my point number one? I'll begin with the point on Ramdaye. And how can I phrase it? I'll start by saying, to begin with is Ramdaye. What was the question? Elected leaders. Now I'm just trying to tell the participants online. Uh, in answering the question, we need to pick the right argument that answers our question. The right argument meaning, which are these elected leaders? Elected leaders, in my opinion, one of them is Ramdaye. So I pick him out, I single him out, and I say, to begin with is Ramdaye, the deputy mayor of Maracas municipality. He is one among the selfish leaders whose corrupt ways are making the citizens to suffer. A full stop at that point. A full stop at that point, meaning up to there, any student has already captured 1 mark. Every student has already captured one mark by way of identifying the correct point. And that makes up for the topic sentence. There's someone who asked online yesterday, could you please tell us which one is the topic sentence? The one that touches on my marking scheme, identifying a correct point, it becomes the topic sentence. First of all, you can even say, first of all is Ramdae, the deputy mayor, who makes people, we can change wordings. There's no way my argument and yours can look alike word for word. Even my argument, if you ask me to do it a second time, it should not look alike word for word unless you have copied from each other. That is why I'm also avoiding doing what? Reading. I explain. After I'm done with explaining, I can then share my screen. So the first one you have identified is Ramdae, 1 mark. The identification of Ramdae as among the elected leaders who is selfish. For you to gain a second point, over here it extends beyond. Extending beyond, I mean, we want to focus our argument on Ramdae's selfishness. And this reminds me of another question that was raised yesterday. Someone asked, are we supposed to speak about all the indiscretions, all the corrupt activities of these municipal leaders before we can earn fully? My answer was, and I stick to my answer, whichever argument you pick, even if it is one argument, two arguments, because someone asked, are we supposed to give how many illustrations? We don't look at how many illustrations. I repeat, we look at how convincing is your argument. So the people online, the participants online, for you to gain the second mark, imagine you'll have to go all in. All in, I mean, you'll have to be very familiar with your text of the Samaritan, John Lara's The Samaritan. At the same time, avoid sweeping statements. Ramdae is a conman, and then you continue and tell me, Ramdae, he's practicing nepotism. Another one, you go ahead and tell me, Ramdae is asking for bribery from Ivy. That one so far, you are still at one mark. 1 mark meaning you've simply identified Ramdae. And can you convince us of his selfishness? You have simply given sweeping statements. When you begin by telling me that Ramdae is a conman, what details can you give to his conmanship to make your point valid? Conmanship that leads to the suffering of the citizens. And I'll put it as follows. I'll say, Ramdae, he is a leader that is mostly known for Ramdae is a leader that is mostly known for his conmanship. What has he done? According to John Lara, we are being told there is not a single person he has not conned. These are not my words, they are words within the Samaritan text. There is not a single person he has not conned. Can you strengthen that argument on his conmanship? You continue and say, it has been said that Ramdae usually prints 10 different title deeds for a single piece of land, and he sells it to 10 different people. The words of the book, they did not say 13, they did not say 3. As much as you're trying to build up on our argument, we always remember we should be having the backing of our set book. So when I say there's no man he has not conned, even if I change the wordings a bit, if I paraphrase, there's not a single man Ramdae has not conned. Number 2, on the conmanship, we are being told he prints 10 different title deeds for the same piece of land and ends up selling the piece of land to like 10 people. Still on his conmanship. And you don't have to cram, you people. You just have to read the text over and over. You'll get the hang of it. Another thing about Ramdae, you are being told he is hanging in back streets waiting for the printing of the fake title deeds. And among the people who was sold to the fake title deed is someone by the name of Bembe. Bembe, the IG, the Inspector General of Police. When Inspector General of Police is getting angry, he wants to go and deal with Bembe for what Bembe has done. There's a way that Mosi does. There's something that Mosi says as a way of trying to There's something that Mosi does. There's a concern on screen. I'll attend to it in a minute. There's something that Mosi says that this guy, that is the way he makes his living. He tells it to Bembe. It's like a way of trying to relax Bembe. Relax. This guy has done it a number of times. So over there we see, if we are supposed to prove someone that has suffered because of his acts, we can talk about Bembe, even though he's not a very good person. But at the same time, Mosi in a certain page, when he is speaking to Nicole, he says that is how this man has been making his living, and it has led to the suffering of countless citizens. Before I can continue, someone is asking, when writing the illustrations, are we supposed to write the expected word from the text? My answer to Gloria is no. You can paraphrase. Even myself as a teacher, I cannot do it word for word, but I remember not a single person he hasn't conned. The same sentence, you can put it in your own words. He has conned very many people. He has conned almost everyone. That one is still on the same argument. You're basing it on the book, but still on the same argument. Still on Bembe. What else has Bembe done? Now, allow me this time to rush through so that I can also share my screen on what I have written about Bembe. Another thing that Bembe has done, to portray him as someone very selfish. Bembe is practicing nepotism in what way? We have been told he is in charge of the Department of Infrastructure within the municipality. Because of that, Bembe has employed the services of his relatives. How does the book put it? If I could remember briefly, they're saying he has given chances to his wife, even given chances. I'm changing the words a bit. I'm paraphrasing. Given chances to his wife, his daughters, his great grandfather, the in-laws, as well as the outlaws. I don't know whether my students saw the humor in it. This guy is exaggerating when he is speaking about the outlaws. The outlaws are people who are on the wrong side of the law. And when Moses says outlaws, if you could touch on such a point, even the examiner knows this student knows their book. How did they know? They have mentioned in-laws and outlaws, even if you cannot remember sister, wife, but something worth remembering. I'm not saying it is a must to use that illustration, but when you say he is even working with in-laws and outlaws, that definitely tells the examiner my student knows their book. Higher, fast forward. What else can you say? We are going ahead and saying the people that have been given, we want to also, whatever we are saying, we are tying it to the suffering of the people. Even when you say these contracts are not given on merit, he's only giving it to his relatives. That one already, in a subtle way. Sometimes the suffering has not been dwelt on in the book widely, but in a certain way, what have they said? People are suffering. The guy who has been conned off his money for an non-existent piece of land, he has suffered. The one who has been denied a job because he is not related to Ramdai, he is also being denied a job. We move on. What kind of job does Ramdai do when he is given the contracts? Because the people given, they are not qualified, they're just simply being favored. We are being told, now I'm touching on the book. They're saying they only dig up a section. I don't even the word in the book whether it was section because I'm not reading. They dig up a section of the road and then they pour black oil. At the end of it, how do the roads look after a section of it being dug, black oil being poured on it? At the end of it, the road looks deplorable. Even the word deplorable is not in the book, but I'm paraphrasing. They look like abandoned. Now the words of the book are, the roads later on look like abandoned battlefields where a bomb had been detonated, where a bomb had gone off. And another thing, how do the citizens suffer in such a scenario? We're being told even tractors sometimes get stuck. As a citizen of this Maracas municipality, you expect the roads should be in a good state such that when I'm using them, the trucks are not supposed to get stuck. I feel I have explained it to the best of my ability. Allow me now to share the point on Ramdai. And I hope from your end you can see my screen. Let me just, in a minute or so, I'm sharing my screen. You focus on, so we had started on Ramdai. Let me bring to focus Ramdae. Everything I've said about Ramdae, let it flow. I'll give it a minute and then I'll flip the screen. We take the point up to where it is concluding. The minute I'm giving it to you, you read through the same explanation I've done. Maybe not in the same order, but then the same explanation I have done. As you're coming to the end of that discussion on Ramdae, I want you to focus on the last sentence. I want you to focus on the last sentence. There's some people who are asking me, Cha, what is the clincher? Is it a repetition? Look at the clincher in my argument. You're saying, thus. In other words, you're proving the validity of the argument. Validity of the argument, I mean, whatever we have said is in accordance to the question that you had asked me. So what do I conclude my paragraph by saying? I'll say, thus, residents continue to suffer under his watch. Indeed, citizens suffer when they elect rogue leaders like Ramdae. I hope that was in order. Hope that was in order. The point on Ramdae, I think I've done it to the best of my ability. I've been able to share. Now, before I can go to point number 2 on the next person, I want to ask pose a rhetorical question to the people online. Whenever we are teaching, let's try as much as possible to grasp as much as possible, because whatever I have written, you can see what I was explaining is more detailed than what I had explained is more detailed than what was written down. What do I mean? For example, in my write-up, I've not seen the part where they're talking about it has become okay, that one I've seen. I've not seen maybe some bits that I had already given you people, but then in my explanation, I've already done it. Still on the write-up, now you'll see we are gaining both sides. On the write-up, there's a bit I did not explain, but you have seen it brought to your focus. They have said another way that a selfish leader will make people to suffer is the act of Ramdae. Imagine someone uncovering a scandal that people's local production is being undermined. They want to show, they want people's plants, people's produce not to prosper by introducing the rodents, but instead of a leader being the person who tells people things are not going the right way over here, the person decides, I can benefit from it, I can keep quiet, give me some money, and all that. Under such leadership, we see that people suffer. Allow me to go to my second point. And remember, I'm speaking to people who are enlightened. You have been through the class from yesterday. And from yesterday's class, we were able to establish that the parts of an essay, how do you introduce the next paragraph. So you can simply say, secondly, and you don't have to use secondly because someone will very soon ask me, teacher, must I use secondly? You can still say another character in whichever way you want to use your phrasal markers. Phrasal markers moving from one point to another. Transitional words is another word for phrasal markers. Number 2, I want to speak about Ted King. Allow me to speak about Ted King. And once I had spent a lot of time on point 1, the rest of them I can move a bit faster so that you also have time for the second essay. Point number 2, let's speak about another character who's an elected leader and who is corrupt and making people to suffer. I choose on Ted King. What I'll say about Ted King is that He is a leader who had been elected by the youth because they were swayed by his hairstyle. In other words, in general, his youthful look. What did his youthful look comprise of? You can choose to tell us. He had been elected because of his ripped jeans, his fade hairstyle, the adornments that Morsi describes as satanic. And the people had confidence in him. They elected him in office. Now, we have already transitioned. We've shown that he's elected. Now let's move on. How does his selfishness manifest? His selfishness comes out in this way that Ted King, he is responsible for eating a whole hospital. What does eating a whole hospital mean? It means that this guy, instead of doing what was required of him as a responsibility, he ends up making use of public funds, and he ensures that companies of his relatives and his close friends are the ones that win the tenders. And what kind of a job do these people do? When you pick on an argument, if it is about the hospital, pick on that argument up to conclusion. Don't give sweeping statements. The companies belonging to his friends and his relatives, they do a shoddy job. In what way? Could you give us an example? We are being told they build site offices. First of all, they embezzle the funds, they steal the money. After stealing the money, they end up putting site offices that look like cow sheds. Already over there, you're bringing out his selfishness. Another thing that he does, apart from eating a whole hospital, another disservice he does to the citizens. So you're being told Ted King, he is supplying air to the municipality. Supplying air has a mean, and they continue. The book continues further and tells us the supply of air includes he does not do any job, but at the end of the day, he bills the municipality a check. A check meaning you need to pay my money for work that he has not even done. When we're looking at such activities of Ted King, if you could just peg him on eating a whole hospital as well as selling air, that one shows that he is an inept leader that is making people to suffer. The same line of argument, whereby we are talking about this guy. His services are not beneficial to the common citizen. When he is practicing nepotism, giving the tenders, that one also, in a subtle way, subtle is the opposite of obvious. In a subtle way, we are able to see that citizens suffer under him. And because I say the other points shall not really be delving into them so much, I'd rather share my screen with you and we are able to see the line of argument better. We are on Ted King. We are on Ted King. And I'm glad the point on Ted King can be fitted on the same page. Let's take a look. Allow me a silent reading. In case I find something that is of importance, I'll highlight it. Silent reading as you're also reading silently on the same point, secondly. There's another bit I can add to, but before I can add to the bit, I want to call your attention to the last sentence that starts with citizens. That one is also another example of a clincher. A clincher still keeps insisting, my argument is in line with the question. Citizens who vote in leaders like Ted end up in anguish. since the self-seeking leader does not deliver services to them. Instead, they embezzle funds. There's a typo error. They embezzle, not embezzles. They embezzle funds for their selfish interest. Now, whatever I wanted to highlight to you, the point on eating a whole hospital is clear. The point on supplying air is clear. There's another point that we can add to this. We are strengthening our argument. This guy is not good. That is the argument you are trying to strengthen, that this guy is a selfish leader. We can look at the part whereby this guy is telling Mosi, let's misallocate funds, and while we are at it, the citizens were supposed to be cleaned for Maracas municipality. It was in a state of inhygiene. It was very dirty, Maracas municipality. And I said the suffering of the citizens most of the times can be brought out in a subtle way. Kidogo tu. Can you imagine citizens living in a dirty environment and the leaders that can put a stop to this one? You remember that Ted is in charge of environment as well as health. He has messed up with the health sector. Now he is also looking to mess with the environment sector, whereby instead of cleaning the environment, they plan to get the money, and from the money, they can go ahead and do what? And use for their own benefit. Let's move on to a different point. Point number 3, point number 4, to run very fast. Point number 3, we are on Simo. What can you say about him? We can say that this guy is selfish. How is this guy selfish to the detriment of the citizens? What I mean is, the selfishness of this guy is counterproductive to the citizens, making the citizens to suffer. Number 1, let me pick the line of argument of the drugs. The guy is selling drugs, as Mosi puts it some other way. He says he's selling these evil things. He is selling drugs, and the people who are most affected, the people who are susceptible to using drugs, are the youth. And what is the result of the youth using drugs? You say they're selfish, and because of their selfishness, the citizens are suffering. The youth are turned into cabbages, as you have seen from the set book. They end up dropping out of school. Some of them go crazy, and some of them altogether die. That one is already suffering of the citizens because of his drugs. Number 2, how else are citizens suffering under Simo? Under Simo, we are being told he is in charge of a murderous gang by the name of Black Swan. Black Swan is responsible for the disappearance of people. Let's try and imagine a member of your family has disappeared. Are you people even going to be sleeping in peace? But some of these things you don't even need to go ahead and prove. Once you just say making people to disappear, you're already telling us that people are suffering in the hands of Simo. Another thing, apart from drugs, apart from being in charge of a murderous gang, there's another bad thing that Simo does. Simo is the secretary in charge of planning. And because of his position, how is he selfish to the disadvantage of the common citizen? To the common citizen, you're being told this guy approves buildings of only the people who have parted with dollars. I'm already touching on the book. For you to make your argument strong, at other times, make sure you touch on the book. You can even say people who bribe him. But when I say people who part with dollars, and these people who part with dollars, their buildings get approved. And it does not matter, the book says very clearly, it does not matter whether the buildings were up to standard or not. And another way the citizens can suffer, it has been said, was it Teacher Nicole who said it? Was it Mosi who said it? They said, one of them, we shall confirm later. They're saying this is despite Maracas municipality being in a seismically active area. Seismically active area means it is prone to earthquakes. This is an area where earthquakes happen frequently. If you forget the word seismically active, you can just say this is despite the area being prone to earthquakes. And if in case an earthquake happens, what will happen to the citizens? They will be at a disadvantage. So we've looked at Simo from all these areas of corruption, approving buildings even though maybe they're not up to standard. We are looking at Simo on his behavior of drugs. And another thing about Simo, can you remember he's also in charge of selling air? I cannot stress on selling air enough because I'll be repeating myself. Let me just share my screen. How have I explained? And in the screen, as I'm sharing it, let's look out for the topic sentence, the illustrations meaning you look at the point getting explained until it becomes convincing enough. And after that, I always want you to look out for what ties up the argument, the clincher. So I'm on Simo. Let's read together so that I can flip the page. Thirdly, Simo is the self-seeking secretary to the Municipal Department of Planning and Development. In spite of his moral failings, the people elected him overwhelmingly. And you remember that he bribed people using his drug money to buy his way into office. Young people suffer from, I've turned the page, now let's internalize. I was reading because I wanted to get done with it faster and turn the page. Let's look at, he peddles the drugs, leaves them cabbages, dropouts, some die while others run crazy. Let's look at what he does with building plans. Clearly mentioning the seismically active area prone to earthquakes. People disappear mysteriously because he's in charge of the Black Swan. They are known for violence and all that. Another thing, he keeps threatening people. I'm a lawyer, I'll sue you and all that. We are learning that he never stepped a day into a law school. He simply went and bought his law degree from the black market. I guess that is enough of Simo. Let's focus on the last leader. And I think we are running in good time. Let's focus on the last leader being Mosi Oatunya. Mosi Oatunya. There's a place that Mosi Oatunya brags of the fact that he has been elected by thousands of people. He has been elected by thousands of people. But then when he gets into office, what does Mosi do? Does he do what is expected of him, or does he do the contrary, that is a portrayal of his corruption? And if I could pick out on the things that Mosi has done in a corrupt way, let's start with he is allowing corruption to go on right under his nose. What do I mean corruption is going on right under his nose? There is a place that Nicole tries to bring him to account. Nicole is asking him, but the buck stops with you. How come you're not doing anything? It is more of a betting. When you're not, calling to account things that are being done with people by people under you, that means you are betting them. Unawasaidia to continue with their corrupt ways. That is one of the things that Mosi does. He doesn't call them to account. He allows them to do that. What else has Mosi done? If I could just rush through it. Mosi is also stealing from the people. Do we have proof that Mosi is stealing from the people? He admits it in his own words. He tells Nicole, bread from the people comes through me. Out of a loaf of bread, I will eat two, at most three. What is the guy admitting to? The guy is admitting, I'm actually corrupt, but I'm not so corrupt like Ramdai. I'm not as corrupt as Simo, but in his own admission, the guy is corrupt. If you want to prove that Mosi is corrupt, always go back to the point on Of a loaf of bread, I usually eat at most 3. Still on most, you want to prove that this guy, even when you say he is stealing from the citizens, when the money meant for the people is coming in through him, he decides that I will use a bit of it for my own gain. So we are still seeing, in a certain way, the citizens are suffering. Apart from that, there's something that Mosi has been accused of, something that you're calling municipal capture. For the person who does not know what municipal capture is all about, municipal capture is whereby the affairs of the municipality will be dictated by your whims. I feel like my wife should have more money. We introduce a new tax, such things. So, who is suffering? The people of the municipality are suffering when the issues of the municipality have to be run dependent on his feelings. Those are some of the things that Mosi has done that portray him as a bad leader. Apart from that, could you remember that he also has a hand in corruption, further strengthening the argument on corruption? There is a time that this guy was banning the Samaritan. He was even campaigning, let's hack the Samaritan so that it won't function. He's even denying them the permission. He's denying them the go ahead to continue the activity. Another thing, he even goes to Nicole and says, name your price. What kind of a leader does that? He is aiding corruption. Name your price. I can even be the shareholder within that company and all that if I could. Yeah, if I could, maybe lack of better words, but when you're reading, we'll be able to get it more. Someone is asking a bit, should municipal capture be supported with rodent gate affair? Rogers, the answer is no. Municipal capture is particular to Mosi. If I could put it in Kiswahili, shida zako are the ones that are making, that are the ones that are determining what is going to be done in Maracas municipality. Rodent gate affair is very particular to Justice Jaden. Please, we cannot say that. I think I've answered your question. So if I could share Odmos, even when I'm sharing, I'm also able to gain what have I forgotten to tell my participants about. So we are looking at his aiding corruption, favoring a few people who are corrupt at the expense of another. Number 2, at the same time, Rogers is asking which point supports on municipal capture. The point that supports, he has simply been accused of it. There's a time Harvester is telling him, when Harvester is trying to, Harvester seems a bit enlightened. Harvester is telling him, they're accusing you of the worst crime, which is municipal capture. Municipal capture meaning that the affairs of the municipality are run on basis of your feelings. This one has simply been mentioned. And you cannot invent a new book, something that has not been given the details. We're not going to go and invent our own details. This one was simply mentioned as Harvester was trying to tell him what he has been accused of. Another thing I was talking about, Mosi, he's aiding corruption. He is accused of municipal capture. He himself admits to being a thief. Even there's a time they're telling him, you're refusing to approve this supplementary budget. Do you think we don't know how much you have stolen? His allies are telling us he's also stealing. And another thing, he also tries to corrupt teacher Nicole, asking her to name her price. And he is also part of the people who go to convince her to take up a position within the municipality. Let me share on Mosi. Then you conclude, I take your questions, and then I go to the next one. Let's share my screen. We are finally on Mosi. He was my point number 4. We are on Mosi. Point number 4. Point number 4 on Mosi, it says, lastly, the mayor of Maracas municipality, Mosi Oatunya, is also a selfish leader whose avarice is that love of money. results in untold suffering for the subjects under him. So my participants were able to see some of it. Definitely the people will suffer. When the leaders are stealing and stealing, of course the citizens will suffer even without saying. He claims that he was voted in by hundreds of thousands. Continue reading downwards. He tries to intimidate Miss Narine, the principal. Further reading. There's a point I told you is aiding corruption. What captures on that? There's a point that says, in the past, he has been forced by Simo to misallocate public money to fund unnecessary demands. The demands have been mentioned in the book: sitting allowances for committees, travel allowances. They have always forced his hand. Therefore, they are using him as a rubber stamp to enrich themselves. The buck stops with him, but he cannot stop them, really. Another thing that Mosi has done, this one I forgot, but whenever we are having a write up, it is also good I'm able to remember. Do you remember the bit where Mosi ordered for all the newspapers to be purchased from the vendors in order to deny the public knowledge? You know, the media is supposed to inform the public, but the public are suffering in that they are being denied knowledge when someone decides to use public funds to buy all their newspapers, to deny them their information. That one is still another bit that speaks to his corrupt acts leading to the suffering of the citizens. I've turned the page. I'm on the last bit of it. How could you forget? Mosi is also a member of an outlawed gang. He is aiding the breaking of the law. He is the one in charge of the Red Eagle. There's a time he is even offering money to pay the black man. If you could remember your details of the book. That one is also something that he does wrong, to always have his way. If you don't toe my line, I'll even use force. How will I use force? I will enlist the help of my outlawed gang, and that is what he will be doing. Before I can go to the conclusion, If I can go to the conclusion, 1 minute, finish up on the reading of Mosi in 1 minute, and then I can tell you what next. Thank you. That should have been enough time. I stop sharing my screen and then I go back to this. Anyone with a concern, you raise it right now. We address it. We go to the conclusion and then move to our next question. Anyone with a concern, raise it at this point so that I can give you the conclusion, and I can even call out for your input. Your input meaning any other that you feel like we could add. But for the points for this particular argument, there are only 4 elected leaders. And let's take it at that. There's a screen that everyone can see. The charts, they are visible to everyone. Should municipal capture be supported with rodent gate affair? That one we refused. Which points will support municipal capture? I answered, I said it was a mere mention. It was a mere mention of what he's being accused of. Higher further, someone is asking, how has sexual perversion been outlined in the text? How has sexual perversion been outlined in the text? Allow me a bit of time. Let me come back with that answer in tomorrow's lesson conclusively. But then sexual perversion, if I could just touch on it. But whenever I'm explaining, I want to be thorough. But could you remember there was a lesson on ethics that teacher Nicole had mentioned. In that, during the lesson on ethics, there's a point that she was mentioning about what wrong things that people have been engaging in. That is the bit I remember. It had been mentioned, but in association with this, allow the answer to come after a thorough reading. Allow it to come in tomorrow's lesson, please. Any other questions? Sexual perversion? Let's continue. I'll come up with an answer tomorrow. Is it okay to have more than 4 points in an essay? Yes. It is good to have more than 4 points. Just yesterday had already said, I said, the 4 points, your point number one can be thin. Thin meaning it can only earn you one mark. Then we get to your point number five. It is strong. It is worthy of 3 marks. So whenever we are marking in paper 3, we take into account your best 4 points. So you might think point number one is your best, only for point number 5 to score more than point number one. So it is good to have more than 4 points. Let it be up to the examiner to judge which one is strong. And at the end of it, I'll pick out your best 4. Another one is asking, excuse me, madam, can you say on other leaders such as Inspector Bembe? I suppose this one was not in our yesterday's class, but we are not downplaying anyone's concern. All concerns are important. Yesterday, we were able to establish that some of the positions are elected by the people. And I've been giving evidences. Simo, what shows he has been elected by the people? What shows Memosi? What shows Ramdai? What shows Ted has been elected? Only the 4. Someone like Bembe, he's a leader. Whenever they don't say voted in, he's still a leader, but we call it a political appointment. I want you to relate with even Kenya. I'm not saying Samaritan is from Kenya, but people like the IG, have we ever gone to the polls to elect an Inspector General of Police? The answer will be no. Have we ever gone to the polls to elect the judge? Your answer will be no. Those are political appointments. We did not vote for them, therefore they do not meet the requirements of today's question. How about when he ordered Nicole to write a letter to Ministry of Education and a copy through his office in an hour's time? If I could reply to Rogers, that speaks to Mosi being threatening. Even when I'm kubwa, if I use Kiswahili, Mheshimiwa comes to your office and he threatens you. That is still to the disadvantage of the common mwananchi, the citizen. He is using threats. Even when Nicole is not agreeing with him, he tells her, you will know I am Mosi or Atunya. So even these ones are acts of corruption. He tries to suppress her, forcing her, later on asking her to name her price, giving her. All these are acts of corruption. And you people will agree with me. Even acts of corruption, they're working to whose good? It is only the people involved that are gaining. The common citizen, acts of corruption, we are not gaining at all. Any other question? These were your concerns before I can go into a conclusion. And the conclusion, I can simply just share my screen. I don't want it to be one lesson of the whole. And I'm not asking you not to share your questions. Please, that is not what I'm saying. But just to tell you, conclusion, you can have the following types. You can have a relevant proverb. If you find one, you'll share it with me. Number 2, apart from a relevant proverb, we can have summary of the points already discussed. Finally, number 3, we can have a piece of advice that is morally upright. The last bit of my screen I want to share. The last bit of my screen I want to share. The last bit of my screen I want to share on the same essay, and then you put it to rest. Of my essay, and then you put it to rest. I want you to see an example of a conclusion. Rogers is asking whether I came up with, and that is where I began my lesson from. Rogers, a minute. I'm repeating. In conclusion, citizens who want their region to develop with expediency meaning fast, must elect honorable leaders of integrity, supporting inept, another word is mediocre, supporting inept leaders who only care about their own interests results in agony for the citizens. That I've only chosen one type of conclusion. Back to Rogers, he still has a question he had already asked yesterday, but maybe he was not in class when I was answering. To Rogers and any other, I was able to do this, to ask from other teachers, and the answer was actually, you're right. Did you come up with my question about the relevant proverb? I have an answer for you. I don't know whether it was a proverb, whether it was a question. In my understanding, I was supposed to come up with an answer for you. And the answer is yes. We can come up with a proverb as long as it is relevant and in line with the question of the day. And I was telling my students that are online, you people love saying all that glitters is not gold. And at other times, it will not be applicable for the question of the day. So if you can find an applicable proverb, even all of us who are participants, is there anyone with a relevant proverb that can relate with the question of the day? I'm also open to being educated. I'm open to additions. You can also give me any relevant proverb, you can add it. You share with the teacher, who in turn will share with the rest of us. I'm giving it how many minutes? 2 minutes. And then I close up this discussion. I bring the next essay. And this next essay will not be as detailed as the first one because I'm sure the people online have already got a hang of it. You've understood exactly what are we doing to earn the full marks, Mwalimu. What are we doing? I'm sure you've got the hang of it. In a minute, I'll go to the next question. Please let's not leave the meeting. I'll get to the next question. Okay, and the next question is, someone will say, teacher, share the screen. I'll share, but I always want to give my learners a chance to also brainstorm. When I give you the screen directly, most people will not even try to reason it out. They'll just want to read what the teacher has already given. Now, the question is, if you could just listen. Alliances formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. Alliances formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. Discuss with reference to the Samaritan. Alliances that are formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. As you're trying to digest that, there's a new question asking, not all that glitters shines. Can this talk about how people misuse their powers, but in the end, consequences follow? Royal, I'm not even sure there's such a proverb. I feel like the proverb has been misquoted. If you could go back to the characteristics of a proverb usually gives very little room for alteration. Haifai kubadilishwa. The way the proverb is usually given, like what I know is all that glitters is not gold. When you say not all that glitters shines can talk, we don't even talk about that. Not all that glitters shines. I'm sorry, we do not have such a proverb. The proverb has been misquoted. And Royal, I also don't think it is applicable for our lesson for today, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for trying to at least come up with something. The way the teacher says, could you also share with me? And then pride comes before a fall. Pride comes before a fall. There's an element of pride within this book. And mostly maybe it can apply to Jaden. He's so proud. I'm a person who is educated and all that. Later on, when he is cornered, we see that Jaden, but this one is now deviating from our discussion. Pride comes before a fall is a good proverb. It is not misquoted, is okay. But at this point, do I see it in relation to my question? Let me ask that as I'm also making reference to my question. When they elect selfish leaders, they end up suffering. It will also not apply. As I was answering you at the same time I'm reading my question, it will also not apply. It is a proverb, but it will find a way. One of the questions maybe it might find somewhere that it can be applicable. Do I have permission to continue to the next essay? Do I have permission to continue to the next essay? Or is there someone still with a burning question? As you're contemplating on that, mwalimu aendelee, or should I maybe address your concerns? I want to tell you this. It is not a waste of time. It is not futile that you're able to join my online class right now. Whatever illustrations you have gained, it is as if the teacher has come back to class and taught the book for maybe a second or a third time. And what will also surprise you, class, will be that some of the things you have said will still be applicable in other arguments. The only difference is I want my students to be the kind of people who know how to bend the details, how to fit. Let me talk about how to fit the details of the question of the book to fit into the question. When you do that, you become a very good student of literature. The same story, but then the same story, you choose on which parts of the book will answer this. Without further ado, allow me to do this. The question, highlight on it, and then from the question, you can roughly tell me what points are you anticipating we are going to use. I'm now going to my essay 2. I have a second essay. The main focus should be on the question. And I've even zoomed in on the question that says, we all know that you're basing it on the Samaritan, so the other part, I've edited it out a bit. And then I'm saying, alliances formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. Alliances formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. That is the question. Now, with the question, I want people to brainstorm. And they can even be telling me in the chat section what comes to mind. Doreen, share the last part of the screen for Mosi. I will even avail the document in full. I will give it to the main group. I will share it, and Doreen will have a chance to read all of it over and over again. I will, but at the end of the lesson, I want how many minutes are remaining? Like my 45 minutes remaining, we also cover the other one. Please, Doreen, I will. Don't worry. I want someone to chat me on the screen. Alliances that are formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. What comes to mind? And even if you don't understand, maybe one of the words, you ask me. Alliances formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. I'm seeing someone saying, Mosi and his, yeah. There's Mosi and his person. Another person, a different point. Which other alliance? Because these people will be regrouping. Today, Mosi is with ABCD. Tomorrow, Mosi is with other people. Which other one? You know, when you give me these points, they make the basis for the topic sentences. A topic sentence will always capture one among the arguments, okay? So that I don't waste time for many of us, I'll go ahead and tell you which points we shall be using. Number 1, the comments on the screen are correct. Like in the Samaritan, when an alliance between Mayor Mosi, Honorable Ramdae went to confront Nicole, I agree. When municipal leaders, e.g. Mosi, Ramdae, Jaden, when they joined together at Sagrada to win Nicole, thank you so much. Thank you so much, they're correct. Allow me to take over. I now understand my class has the meaning of an alliance. But then let me caution you. I forgot to tell you yesterday. Anytime you're given a paper 3 question, do not define the terminologies. Someone telling me, An alliance is a group of people who have come together because of a common goal. That one I give you 0. If you dare define for me in the introduction bit, I will give you a 0. I've already given you the types of introductions that you can use. Therefore, definition does not suffice. Definition can never be one among the types of introductions. Now, let me give you the points you're going to use, and then later on, we look at each one independently. Number 1. And there's someone who asked me, teacher, do we have to give the points according to the way the story took place? And my answer was no. But then myself, because I know that I'll not have the book in the exam, which is the best way to remember all these points, I'll do it as follows. I'll remember the story from the beginning, and then I remember which was the first alliance. The first coming together was of Mosi and the municipal leaders together with Bembe and Jaden. That makes up for the first alliance. And it had a common goal. They had all been pointed out in the Samaritan because of their acts of corruption. Point 1, I'll explain it later. If there's someone writing, already you have got the first alliance. They had come together because they had been accused. They had been accused in the Samaritan. Point number 2. Even though maybe when I'm discussing, they'll not be in the same order. Another alliance that we are aware of, if you try to remember the story, the way it unfolded, it gives you the points accurately. The second alliance was that one of Ramdae, Simo, and Ted, after Mosi refused to misallocate the funds. They regrouped and now formed a new alliance. And you remember another person that was supposed to be part of that alliance was supposed to be Basdeo. That makes up for my number 2 alliance. The Ramdae, I usually call them the Ramdae faction, the Ramdae alliance. It consists of Ramdae, Simo, Ted, and they were waiting for Basdeo, if you could remember the story. Number three, there was also another alliance, and I always want us to begin with the strongest of points. There was also another alliance between Bembe and Mosi. Bembe and Mosi, they had come together because Bembe had needed the power of the IG to compel his enemies or to put his enemies at a disadvantage. He wanted his enemies to be arrested before they can pass a vote of no confidence against him. And who was the best person to seek an alliance with if it was not a Bembe? That one I'll speak about it in detail. Let me see. Teacher, please repeat the first alliance. The first alliance was, and I can see that this one has also been recorded. You can still find it on YouTube later. The first alliance was Mosi. He was chairing that committee. And then he called Ramdae. Ramdae was present. Ted, Simo, Jaden, and Bembe. They had been invited to that meeting because they had something in common. They had been accused in the Samaritan. I think, Lani, we are on board. I had gone up to the third alliance of Bembe and Mosi on their own. Number 4. I'm heading to number 4. Number 4, there was still another alliance. Royal, there's a point you've asked. There was an alliance between Bembe and Harvester. 1 minute and then I address this question. You have a very valid question. The next point, I wanted to talk about 2 more points and then I go to address Royal's concern. The reason I'm doing that is that so that I don't lose my line of thinking. Staki kusahau what I was saying. So another alliance, we still have Mosi, Bembe, but this time they had incorporated the judge, Jaden. And also you can remember there should have been Harvester. But even, let me console my class a bit. Even if you cannot remember all the members of that alliance, If you could just tell us what their goal was in coming together, you have already given proof of an alliance. Like myself, I'm trying to say, this other alliance, we had Bembe, we had Mosi, and they had blackmailed Jaden into joining. Was Harvester present? Even if I forget to mention Harvester, the odds will still be in my favor. I've been able to bring out an alliance. The last alliance, before I can address Royals, the last alliance was between all of them, like the way it started in the beginning. All the municipal leaders, who are they? We started in order of hierarchy. We have Mosi, we have Ramdaye, we have Simo, we have Ted. Harvester was still over there. We have Jaden, Bembe, and a new entrant. The new entrant by the name of Basdeo. He was also over there. The last bit, if you can remember, they were out to persuade Nicole to take up a position so that they can compromise her. To compromise someone has the meaning of to make someone not be able to speak out, if I could use simple English, to make someone not be able to do her job properly. She is moral. Now they want to make her in a way that she can no longer stand on the grounds of morality. Up to there, I want you to internalize my whatever I've said, and then I'm going back to Royal. Royal is asking me, Royal, can you also say the alliance between Bembe and Harvester? Royal, if my memory serves me right, there was no alliance between Bembe and Harvester, but I can think of one. Okay, I can think of two. There was an alliance between Mosi and Bembe, and in attendance was Harvester, if I could put it better. I think that is the one you're trying to call attention to. In that meeting is whereby Bembe was informed, you have been sold to a fake title deed. I think that is the one Royal is trying to bring, to point my attention to. Still on the same, there was another alliance between Harvester and this other person, Jaden. But when I was trying to say, we pick on the strongest of your points, I was trying to ignore this one. Because whenever you want a point, we want a point that will have as many details as possible so that no examiner can refuse it. Whether you're being marked for by this teacher, by that other teacher, they can never refuse it. And let me also defend myself a bit. You know, in literature also, I want to empower my students in such a way. I'm not always the one who's right. Even when you can call my attention to page 38 says this, that one makes me happier. You have availed me a chance to learn. The teacher, there's also some bit of the book you did not understand better. Anyway, back to my explanation. Our question says alliances to enhance evil. And when I remember when Jaden went to speak to Harvester, it did not come out so clearly. They wanted to propagate an evil, they wanted to enhance evil. It was more about, could you put in a good word for me so that they can spare me? That was mostly his agenda for going to see Harvester. They listened to you, you're a Christian and all that. It was more about defending his own self. So that when I want to ignore it, and if I have it, I'll put it as my point number 7. So that even if the examiner decides to ignore it, I'll already have my best 4 points. Up to this point, keywords. 1, alliance. Another keyword, evil. We have to see the bad thing. What is this? What is the intention of this alliance? And if this alliance is not for the greater good, you'll have brought out the evil nature of that alliance. Finally, the alliance is bound to fail. I can see it is 1:30. People are hungry. But I do not intend to mean you leave the group and go for your lunch. My intention of focusing on that, I want to tell you that there's something very important I want to bring to your attention. They are bound to fail. The people who were online yesterday, there's something I said. We do not pay an evil using another evil. We do not pay an evil using another evil. So when you tell me the alliance, Mosi used Ghetto Boys and the Red Eagle to stop them, that is an evil repaying evil. But then in our explanation, we shall go up to that bit. You tell me that they were trying to pass a vote of no confidence because someone refused to misallocate money. For once, as much as Mosi is not a good person, at once he stood for something that is good. He said, over my dead body, I will not misallocate the funds. The people that had not gained from that, they said, utatuona. You will know. We put you over there and you can take you from there. And now, even passing the vote of no confidence, what is informing? I'll answer a chat. There's a chat I've seen. I've seen the chat in a minute. These people were now, they wanted to hound him out of office because he has refused an act of corruption. But then what does Mosi do? He uses another evil to thwart their plans, to stop their plans. When he uses the outlawed gangs, the off-duty police officers, paying the youth to do such things. So for you to be safe in such an argument, how will it end? As much as you'll recognize they did not get to meet, therefore they could not pass the vote of no confidence, to boost their ego that they could take Mosi out of office whenever they wanted because he is not dancing to their tune. You, to be safe now, you go back and say, all the same, the events of the Samaritan continued, and at the end of it, they were all arrested. We want to see their failure. And the point I wanted to pass across to you people, most of the times, when you're talking about their failure, go back to the ultimate failure, which is captured in their arrest. Find your way of bringing up this arrest. That even though they were fighting the Samaritan, they were fighting all this. In the long run, all these people became candidates for the anti-corruption bureau. In other words, failure. If you capture the failure using that statement over and over, you'll be good to go. Let me read a chat saying, how about the alliance of Ivy, Chief, Ivy? Then there was Basdeo and Jaden. This one was Jaden. They had threatened to expose the rodent gates on page 108. Rogers, you have a point. An alliance. What is an alliance coming together? Let's check. I do not have it among my points, but let's check whether it will be enough to get into our argument. You're looking at Basdeo, joining forces with Jaden, makes it an alliance, and then with Ivy. And then was there the evil part? We are judging any details we have from the book, we keep judging it. Which are the parameters of judgment? We are using the question. What evil? Were they propagating an evil? The answer becomes yes. They had reared rats and released them into the into the population, undermining local production, which was an evil act. And then, did they fail? Good, it failed. They were how did it fail? Let me pick an example of Basdeo. When Basdeo is finally being arrested with the rest of them, what are the allegations against him? The allegations should have been this guy, he had been corrupted. He is part of, he is a shareholder in the Orchard. What was the name of that? We'll remember in a bit. He was a shareholder. Those are some of the things that will pin him down. Another thing that Basdeo has done, keeping quiet when, but the one that will pin him down, let's go back to the reality. This guy is a shareholder in a company that should have been prosecuted. And also Jaden, he will be judged on the same scale. Therefore, Rogers, I agree with you. It is also a point. But then I've not discussed it because I think I have like 5 points. I'm not saying my 5 points are the ones and only ones. Please no. But I have points and you guys have judged it, put it on the scale, and it is okay. Now, half an hour to go. I want to begin sharing my screen. In my screen, the first focus, the first bit I want all of us to focus on are the different types of introductions. The different types of introductions. I always purpose to do all of them. And you'll be able to judge yourself. Okay. A minute, and then I go to a concern. A minute, and then I go to a concern. A concern has been raised, but because I've already shared my screen, let's look at the types of introductions. Then I go back and attend to the concern, and then you can move on. Look at the contextualized. They have come together to protect their selfish interests, but they end up failing miserably when their ploys are foiled, when their plans are interrupted. Maybe for simpler words, when their plans are interrupted. And I could even add, and they all get arrested. That one is, I've gone directly to the book, contextualized general. General, what is happening in our society? Politicians can at times come together to form political parties. That is an alliance already. A political party is an alliance for the sole purpose of benefiting themselves. Have you ever seen them? When I get into power, you'll become you'll become the minister, you'll become the that. That is what you're talking about, benefiting themselves and their kin. Their kin are their relatives. Thus, amassing a lot of public wealth. That is also an evil because they have no interest of the common citizens. They do not succeed. Such politicians may later even have to answer to charges of corruption in a court of law. It happens in Kenya. It has happened in the book. Let's go to the paraphrased one, and then you're saying unions formed to propagate. Propagate is simply another word to enhance. I simply change even two words. You now own the introduction. Someone cannot say you have echoed the question. Unions formed to propagate wrongdoing. Evil is wrongdoing. Will never succeed. What is never succeed will fail. Imagine that sentence up to date is a 2 out of 2. It is enough of an introduction that can earn you full marks. Let me go back. Let me address a concern. There's a concern. When I finish with my points, we can allow the students to give their points regarding the question so that if one has an illustration that is not correct, then we can then have it corrected. Good, good. I will adhere to that. So far, I've shared my screen on the introduction. Any concern like what Rogers had told me, teacher, what about Ivy, Jaden, and you can also raise your concern over here. You can raise your concern over here. And once I'm done with my lessons for today, through the admin, I will share the same documents I was sharing with you over here. You'll be able to see the way the argument transitions so that even when some of the points you'd want a repetition, it will be very easy for you to do what? To refer back. So another question, someone says, okay, Rogers is telling me, I have seen in general, I have seen contextualized, but then, why don't you also insert by John Lara? Rogers, I know your teacher has taught you that. Your teacher is very okay. But it will not add any mark. Neither will it deny you a mark for failure of touching on the book. With reference to John Lara's The Samaritan, will not add you a mark neither will it deduct your mark, but you feel comfortable by adding it over there. Haitapunguza, haitaongeza, it is okay. You can do it. I've answered Rogers. You can always do it. But in my expertise, we usually look at the words of the question. And the question was not even with reference to the Samaritan. The question was, alliances formed to enhance evil are bound to fail. We're the ones who know we are making reference to the Samaritan, but for you to score fully in an introduction, we are looking at, in your own words, in his or her own words, has the student been able to understand what are the demands of the question? If you're able to bring out all the demands of the question successfully, I'll give you full introduction. I hope you're together. Someone says, what about their traits concerning what they did wrong to the municipal? In answering the question, no one will ever be asking you about he is corrupt, in that we're not really looking. That is why I encourage my students, always go back. Once you have gone back, I want you to understand the story. As a teacher, I also give my students themes and character traits. But the themes and the character traits are meant to enhance your understanding of the text. They are meant to to enhance your understanding of the text. Therefore, antisocial, it is not really necessary that you keep pointing out to their character traits. Unless the question in particular, I do not have such a question at hand, but unless the question in particular is asking you, maybe the behavior of Mosi makes him a bad leader. This one is just a question I'm inventing. If they ask you that, of course, when they talk about behavior, they're simply asking you about his character traits. But so far in the testing of our NEC exams, so far we've not had a question that is testing on the character traits. Even if you want extra help, I'll direct you as follows. Go and read on the question. Go and understand the story, one. Number two, read on the themes. They'll help you understand the question more. But the best approach, read the story, reread the story, read the story, reread the story. You'll be giving us the illustrations offhand. Offhand meaning without even reading. I hope I've been able to answer antisocial. Teacher, we're going to state the alliances together with their evils. Then we state how they end up failing. Gloria, just muddle. Muddle meaning like the way you don't know the way. Unapita huku, unapita huku. You just look at, another person will portray it differently. If I tell you, Gloria, first of all, mention the alliance, full stop. Then go ahead and state their evil, full stop. And then Gloria just explain. Then as long as you keep making reference to the, if I do it like that, I'll make it so hard for you, Gloria. At the end of it, what will happen is you'll end up cramming. Just look at, let me maybe, if I could maybe read on one of them. To begin with is an alliance comprising of, just listen keenly. To begin with is an alliance comprising of Ramdae, Mosi, Ted, Simo, Bembe, and Justice Jaden. Nikaeka full stop. But still, I could have joined it with the evil that they have done. And all of us would have scored. And both of us would have scored. Mine, I can choose the approach of bringing out the alliance, and then later in my own way, bringing out the evil. I can still, in my own understanding of literature, your understanding of literature, in coming up with your topic sentence, you can join it up with the evil they have propagated. For example, you say, who are all accused of evils in the Samaritan? Sisi wote tuko nini? We both are right. That is what I'm trying to answer in answering to Gloria's question. Another one is asking, that is Gloria's question. I hope I've been able to answer. Another question is, in paraphrasing, how can you write the words that are similar to the question? Royal, that is why I gave you the option. You are a student, we've taught you all the types of introductions. If you know that you're not familiar with synonyms, if you find that if I'm using a paraphrased introduction, I might be like that proverbial pig frying itself using my own lard. Yani, in other words, but instead of helping myself, I end up being a liability to myself. Just make it simple. Go to the contextualized. So you're asking, in paraphrasing, how can you write the words that are similar to the question? I'll answer you by saying, make use of synonyms, words that mean the same. If that particular day you find the question has not given you, while you're not using a dictionary. Therefore, while you're there, you cannot think of any words that are similar. Please just go to another type of introduction. But then if you can find some words like evil, people who are doing formed to continue, even enhance, you can use a word such as continue, wrongdoing, will fail in the end. That one is still a paraphrased introduction. I hope I've been able to answer. I can see someone over here already saying thank you, meaning he or she has understood the explanation. Any other concern? Before I can go to maybe one of the points, if time allows, two of the points. And the way you'll guide me, maybe I can even provide the rest of the points in terms of a write-up. I always have a write-up. It is what I'm presenting on screen. So if I'm not able to finish, I can always provide a write-up. Anyway, 1 minute of a concern.
Madam will be sharing the write-up in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I'll avail it to you. You share it to them.
Yes.
Do you prefer it in a Word document or in PDF? What I'm sharing is PDF, but I have both.
Anyway, even PDF
Okay.
is how.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one you'll choose.
But maybe you can do Word. You can do Word.
Word is even easy to
Any will
print.
do. But any will do though.
Okay.
We'll
It's
just
okay.
print. Thank you.
Okay, allow my class. You give me a chance to explain my first point, and the way I had said it. I don't like reading. I don't like reading because anyone can read, and even the reading should offer a second opinion. You allow me to explain in my own words, after which I'll be able to provide the write-up, the screen, and you'll be able to understand even better. The first point, you know how to introduce points at this juncture. I'm sure all of us know how to introduce points. We can see something like first we know that I'm now sounding like a broken record. The constant repetition allow me to go beyond that. Someone says, in paraphrasing, how you write, Royal tells me, someone told them it is the most appropriate one. Royal, if I don't know the answer, I'll always ask for a chance to do what? To research. So just anything I'm telling you over here, I'm telling you with confidence. All the types of introductions are appropriate. There's no one that will earn 4 marks while the others are earning 2. Therefore, to a student, we are prescribing the paraphrased one, but at the same, because I feel it is the simplest one, but still contextualized is okay and general is okay. Let no one tell you there's a most appropriate one. All of them are okay, as long as you are able to use your own words to interpret the needs of the question. So it is not the most appropriate one. Just from teachers' views, it might be the simplest of all of them. Anyway, I begin with the first point. The first point whereby I'm bringing to your attention the first alliance that was formed, and I've already mentioned the participants of that alliance. Now I want to bring out what do they have in common. All these participants had been highlighted in the Samaritan. And we can just pick maybe even 3 illustrations of what had been said about them in the Samaritan. If I could take you to the background information, Ted, if you understand Ted as a character, he has always been that person who is always acting childish. He is in a meeting. He's not even dressed officially. This one is not something to go into writing, but I just want to bring out the background information to better make you understand. This guy was on his phone. Suddenly, he was pointed out as among the people who had been singled out to be the ones selling air to the municipality. What happens to Ted? Suddenly, he sits upright. So these people, you first of all can give us a background information. What had they done? You can talk about this guy from the Samaritan, what had been said. Even Bembe had been, if you pick on the right details, particular to the right uh, point. At this point, Ted and Simo, they had been accused of selling air. Bembe, he had also been accused of being the owner of Madingo Golf Club. And at that point, he was asking, how did they know about it? I've always done this thing discreetly. How did they know I'm even the owner? Now, where's the evil? We've given a bit of background information. Let it not take a lot of writing. Then what is the evil? These people, the evil that they have come over here is to stop the Samaritan. I don't know whether I'm being understood. They have come together to stop the Samaritan. That is the evil they intend to enhance. And could you give us evidences from the book? What shows that they intend to stop the Samaritan? One of them says, we can first of all bribe the people who are most active in posting the Samaritan. If you're not sure who said what, but you're sure of whatever was said, you can just simply be playing it safe and say, they came up with suggestions. Tunajua ni how, so you can simply say they came up with suggestions to halt the Samaritans, inclusive of hacking. That was mostly, we can hack it. We can make it not to function very well. Harvester asks him, are you talking of hacking? Do you know it is against the law? So that those are some of the steps of the evil. Hack the Samaritan. Another one was proposing corruption. Why don't you pay the people who are posting the most on the Samaritan? Another one even says, where is that information contained? We can go. This is someone who is computer illiterate. Why can't you go to the where the information is stored, and then we can remove it from there? All this, whichever example you're giving me, we are enhancing an argument. We said for you to score, you need to give evidences of what they are doing. If you just say they were evil because they wanted to ban the Samaritan, someone has given me over here. I'm not saying your point is wrong. That is very correct. But then the evil they are propagating, we've already established, alliance comprises of who? Number two, what evil did they want to propagate? Now this evil, we can go ahead and do what? And give details of the evil. The burning of the Samaritan. Even the burning of the Samaritan, they said there's a law they can use against it. If someone can remember the law better than me, or if you can make reference to the book, you bring it up over there. They're talking about it cannot be used with permission except from so and so and so. That one was one of the ways of interfering with the activities of the Samaritan. And then allow me to finish with point number one. How did that alliance fail? How did that alliance fail? That alliance failed after they fell out on the idea of misallocating funds. Among them, some were saying, why don't we ask for more money? And mostly because you have that power, why don't you give it a go ahead? Why don't you give it a go ahead that you be given more money? With that money, we can fight cases in the courtroom. And then Moses said, you're talking about me. I'm the one who will be taken to account. You're the one who approved this money. And then they went ahead and told him, it is not the first time we have done it. In the end, they fall out. That one is still a failure. They had come together to stop the Samaritan. Now they become like those people in the Bible, those that came in one direction and then they fled in different directions. They could no longer agree. And Because of that, already there is a failure, the failure to agree. That one is not really an evil being stopped by an evil, but the falling out is already a failure to their plan. And so that I can emphasize on what I've already said, allow me to share the screen that speaks more to that line of thought. Allow me to share the screen that speaks more to that line of thought. I'm supposed to be on the second essay, that had prior. We had a prior seen some. Prior we had seen the introduction. I want us to go to the point. The point says, to begin with is the alliance between Ramdai, Mosi, Ted, Simo, Bembe, and Justice Jaden. They had even bought all the papers from the vendors to prevent the information from getting to the public, which is indeed an evil act. They had been invited to Mosi's office since they all faced a threat, the Samaritan, as they were accused of a number of indiscretions. Indiscretion simply, I don't know what the word doesn't come to my mind, a replacement of the word. Among the allegations included supplying air to the municipality. To counter this, they gave suggestions such as bribing the frequent posters. In other words, everything I've said, not word for word, but you can see my line of argument is also on the screen. I've given a bit of background information. What have they done? These people are selling air, some of them, and it has found its way to the Samaritan. What is their cause of action to counter this? They want to fight the Samaritan. How will they fight the Samaritan? We are being told they're talking about bribing the frequent posters, hacking the Samaritan, which is evil. Even the buying of the newspapers was evil. Or even leveling false accusations, such as that it has spyware that will steal information, and still the Samaritan is an avenue where the youth could gain pornographic material. There's something I'm stopping at that point and reminding my students, anytime you're arguing, let's always purpose to touch on the details of the book. Whenever you touch on the details of the book, like even how are they fighting the Samaritan? They're saying hacking, bribing people, false accusations. This thing, it will be used to spread pornography. Someone knows my student is in touch with the details of the Samaritan. Let's move up to the end of it. What are we saying at the end of it? Simo, a few lines before the end, Simo and Ted tried to persuade Mosi to approve a supplementary budget from which they would siphon funds with which to fight corruption cases against them in court. Mosi, upon refusing, faced threats from them, the worst being that they will hound him out of office with the passing of a vote of no confidence. Just like that, this is where my point is captured. The end of that point is about the failure. So we are saying, just like that, the alliance had disintegrated and their mission stopped. For all their actions, they finally get arrested by Inspector Tajo. I'm playing it safe. I've given the end of that alliance, they fell out because some people wanted A, the other person said B, I will not do it. That one is already a failure. But to play it safe, I always want us to be going back to how did they fail? For all this they've done, the Samaritan continued, and at the end of it, it exposed them. And finally, they had a case to answer to, which was their ultimate failure. I want to stop sharing the screen right now, go back and maybe address any concern from my students, because I see our 2 o'clock is fast approaching. Our 2 o'clock deadline is fast approaching. Someone's still asking, can you say when the government was involved in this app, and it was more difficult to hack the app because it was more than 500,000 was using. I've already mentioned this. This is the beauty of literature. We are saying the same thing in different words. So to answer the participant, I'll say the activities of the Samaritan continued. What he's telling me in detail now? The same thing I've said, but he's telling me in detail, and 1,000,000 people are using it. So what is that? Despite their alliances, their mission has failed. Up to that point, allow me to do what? To invite the host to give me the direction, and then you can see what you can do from there. Shamatha, are you online? Let me find Shamatha.
Yes, madam, I am online.
Okay, I wanted you to give us direction.
Yes.
Our 2:00, it is 2 minutes to
Our
the
time is
deadline.
up, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I'm wondering, should we begin tomorrow from here, or should we have a new essay question?
How far have we gone? Are we done with the conclusion? Niliacha tukiwa somewhere tukimalizia hizo.
We have only done one point, taking them through the understanding of exactly which alliance, what evil have they propagated, and the failure bit.
Yeah. What do they think? Let's hear what they think. We are at your service. You are the reason why we are here, and we would want to move at your pace. The one thing I would want us to do, maybe in the next one, I don't know which the next one is, where we hear the students raising their points, so that at least in case anybody needs correction, they can be corrected. At that moment. Yeah, so, but let's hear the students. What do you think? Tomorrow we'll begin a new SCM or something. And I also want to hear the opinion about the optional books, because we also want to handle the silent song and the parliament. I know yesterday we took some small poll on who is doing silent song, and maybe, I don't know, can we discuss that? While we discuss that, maybe we can say, can we do maybe not, even if not tomorrow, the day after, we can do one on parliament and one question on parliament, one question on silent song. So that's tunafanya compulsory, like mbili tatu, then we do a silent song and a parliament, so that's kuna mix. But we give more preference to the compulsory book. Those are my thoughts. I don't know. Let's share your opinion.
How many per day?
Like today we've successfully done two.
So tomorrow we do.
If we do the day for optional books, we can do one silent song and one parliament. Hata kama mtu hajasoma asikize tu, you know. Hata kama hujasoma asikize tu, because what we are looking for. And then if you give us the questions before, mtu aende kama ni silent song, asome hiyo song, asome hiyo story, so that when we are coming for the conversation, for the discussion, already akona hizo points. Parliament, mtu amesikia the question, so they can prepare psychologically. Hata akikuja class, hata kama hajafanya parliament, and I'm hoping that everybody has read those books as much as they're not covered in class, at least akona clue. So that's to put all rounded, to find more of the Samaritan, but here the optional books, here to zipe some place. So let's hear what the students think. Would love to hear from you. We will do what you would want us to do. As hatuna form, ninyi mko na form.
They're saying parliament, one. Another one says we can recap this essay. Maybe the person feels we should delve deeper into the essay. So a continuation tomorrow. Another one says a silent song we shall do. Another one says tomorrow we finish the alliance. So for the idea, we wind up with this essay. And those are the comments I've got. So if we could wind up, could we say we wind up with this essay tomorrow, plus another one that I've prepared, that is Thursday.
Yeah.
Are we not having a class tomorrow? You're the ones to
we
direct.
Do. We are going to have them. Yes, we are going to have sessions every day.
Okay.
The 300
then on
was
Friday,
take care of the 5 days. So we'll have sessions continuously, 5 days, mpaka 5 days.
Okay, so the Friday, we shall do a parliament and another one on silent song.
So
I'll prepare
tomorrow,
on
when you're coming
parliament and
tomorrow,
silent song.
yes. So tomorrow, when you're coming, you can give us, you can come with the questions. Ndio sasa tukikuja Friday, already we know what we are coming to deal with. Ndio to
Oh,
prepare,
that one I'll
mtu aende
do.
asome, find out. So tomorrow ukuje na zenye za Friday. Ndio utupe. Ndio on Friday we can move a bit fast and cover both of them.
Yeah, and they can also, the input can also be felt. That is good and okay.
Yes, they can, wakikuja already wako na hizo points.
Yeah, that is okay.
So tomorrow, we can finish up on this, and maybe we can still have something. I don't know. At what point do we do the imaginative compositions? Do they feel like that's a need for them? Maybe we need to hear.
They're the ones to guide us.
What do you think? Somebody is saying we can take a roll call and see how many are doing parliament, how many are doing silent song.
Yeah, the nini is valid. It is valid. Could they, do they have access to, they're saying imaginative composition, you can wind up with it once they have got the hang of the set books.
Yeah.
But they're all calling out for silent song. They wanted to know the roll call. How many do silent song? How many do parliament?
The good thing about silent song, unaona tukiamua tunafanya question ya Ninema ama God is and all that, unajua mtu anaweza enda asome hiyo story hata kama haujasoma silent song. The problem with parliament is ukuwa umesoma the whole book. So maybe can we say, because most of them were silent song, maybe we can prepare for the optional questions, we do silent song, but the few who do parliament, hata hawa parliament waingie tu kwa silent song, because pia ni vizuri tu, you may never know
by the way, yesterday we told them,
time.
Last time we told them the short story scores more. Once you just listen to the story, you're like, okay, and you can have something to write at the end of it.
So can we probably pay attention to the silent song, then parliament, watu wa parliament tunaweza waona kando.
Okay. And still Teacher Martha shared her number. You can always raise your concerns with her. Because so far as I'm about to leave online, what we've agreed on, what I've understood is tomorrow we are winding up with Samaritan, like finish up with this essay and another one. Apart from that, what else are we going to do? We are going to dwell on silent song on Friday.
On Friday. You can have two questions actually. You're sitting at silent song peke yake.
It can be two stories. I'll tell you which ones.
Yeah, we can do two stories. Tomorrow you'll give us the stories.
I will have I'll start with a short one, like Sins of the Fathers, and a smaller one.
The Sins of our Fathers. No, your story ni mrefu.
They'll read on their own.
Yeah, wacha watu wasome. You can actually, if you tell us the questions will be on what, ndio mtu mwenye hajasoma aende asome hiyo story. You can
I'll do that tomorrow's lesson.
Or even,
it is on tomorrow's lesson.
Because I've shared the WhatsApp group, the link for the WhatsApp group. I've shared the one we are using for the normal classes. Then avoid to create another group for essay writing. I can share the questions there. Actually, you can come up with them by end of the day. Come up with the questions. Ndio watu by Friday wakuwe ready. Ndio mtu atafute time between now, tonight, and Friday akuwe amesoma hiyo story. Those two stories wenye hawajasoma.
I'm being told Mbane is a nightmare. Mbane is the silent song itself. The story of the silent song.
The silent of the silent song, I know.
I will be able to do what? To demystify it.
Yeah, or maybe do they have like a story they don't understand at all that maybe they do? Because we can get questions from any story. Do they have they need like a story yenye unasikia hii swali ikitoka hapa actually siwezi handle, as in hiyo story yenyewe hata, because one of the things we are doing while we are doing these discussions ni part of revision, by the way. Ni kurevise hizo discussions tunafanya. It is part of revision. Apart from doing the essay, we're also revising the plot. We are revising the storyline. So maybe there's a story hauelewi, so tukifanya hiyo question, unajua we look into those two issues. So somehow una understand your points.
Okay, but now I've foreseen a problem. Someone is saying Mbane is a nightmare. Mbane is silent song. Another one says sins of the fathers, boy, ghosts. Now you see, if we shall now have to be picking like 2 stories per discussion, because if we allow for this, some people will be asking about ghosts. The other people will be waiting for their clarification to be made. You see, there'll be some sort of confusion. I'll be giving in advance which story we are doing, and I think we'll be good to go. But I've seen sins of the fathers.
Yeah, you can just begin from there. Just see what you can do.
Okay. Sins of the
Or even
fathers.
any that you think can be, hata pia unaangalia ni gani inaweza kuwa tested pia. Although me, I don't
In
like
fact, I
those
usually look at
predictions.
the difficult ones, which is checkmate, and another one, sins of the fathers, is not difficult, but teachers rarely like it because it is lengthy.
It's ni mrefu sana. Sawa, you prepare the questions you give us by end of day today, we'll be happy. Ndio kesho and by Friday mtu hana excuse ya kukosa kukuwa amesoma. Ndio pia tu announce it to the others.
Okay, and the people doing
Sawa.
parliament, the teacher has said you chat her.
Parliament tutawapanga parliament. Wacha wote tufanye silent song, because ukipewa 1 story or 2 stories unaweza zisoma. Utafute tu hizo stories usome, but wapa parliament, because I'm sure si wengi, we can create a session specifically for them at some point, maybe next week or something. We can create something for them. It's not an issue. Due to disadvantage the whole class.
Okay. At this juncture, I just need to thank you for being my viewers, even extending beyond the 2 o'clock. Until tomorrow, that's a wrap.
Thank you. Bye bye, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Invite your friends, talk to your friends. They are most welcome. Bye bye.